Awesome. Kia ora, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first council meeting of the year. It seems like forever since we've been together in the room, but here we are. Everybody's in attendance today. We have no apologies. So what we'll do is begin with words of wisdom from Councillor Kloss. Thank you, Councillor. Is your mic on, Robin? Right button? Cool, thank you.
I found this really difficult to come up with quotes in such a mad time and be talking about wisdom when we're struggling to find some ourselves. However, I've got a mix. Work for a cause, not for applause. Live life to express, not to impress. Don't strive to make your presence noticed, just make your absence felt. Now this one's from Taylor Swift. If you are lucky enough to be different, don't ever change. Honesty saves everyone's time. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it, not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you make them feel.
Thank you, Councillor. It's very true. Right, moving on. Is there any items on today's agenda that any councillors need to declare or feel they need to declare a conflict of interest? Cool, thank you. Moving on. Public forum. Nobody expressed a desire to speak in the public forum. So I'll move on to the receipt of minutes of the Ōtorohanga Community Board dated 4th of November 2021. Do we have a move on a second for those, please? Move Councillor Christensen, second Councillor Dow. Are there any matters arising or corrections on those minutes? Thank you. There's nothing. We'll move on to the receipt of minutes of the Kawhia Community Board dated 17th of December 2021. Do I have a move on a second for the receipt of those? Take a move, Councillor Jeffries, second Councillor Williams. All in favour? Any matters arising from those? Nothing from there. You will note there's no minutes from our council meeting dated, what's that? I'll let you talk to that, please.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. So apologies, we don't quite have the meeting recording because we live streamed it, we recorded it, and we haven't quite transcribed that. So we'll have those minutes ready for the March meeting. So my apologies for that.
Thank you, Tanya. Right, moving on to item 227, just a verbal report, just a couple of highlights of what I've been up to since our last council meeting. On the 1st of December, gosh, it does seem a long time ago, but it's Mayor's Task Force of Jobs handover of the notes, which Noah, who's been my national program manager for the last 3 years, he's resigned, put a fair bit of pressure on me at the end of last year, considering we've got nearly 30 rural councils and provincial councils across New Zealand depended on his input and work. So there's a handover of those notes. On the 3rd, I went to the Waikato Regional Airport AGM. Also had a hui via Zoom on the Rangatahi Employment Engagement Program with Mayor's Task Force of Jobs. 13th of December was the Town Concept Plan meeting. On the 14th was a readiness plan presented by Maniapoto for COVID, should things go pear-shaped. Mayor's Task Force Jobs interviews for a program manager on the 15th and 16th of December in Wellington. 21st of December, I went to Auckland to the Ministry of Social Development stakeholder function. That there was ready to catch up with Minister Sepuloni again to ensure that she remained acutely aware of the work that has been done in the rural communities, such as Ōtorohanga with our employment hub. I had my first Rural Supplies Technical Working Group hui on the 2nd of February, and sorry, I missed one, but it doesn't matter. And that is because I've been selected to be on the technical working group for the rural water schemes and rural water supplies across New Zealand to work with a group of what I deem to be boffins. And I think I've looked at it that I've come at the grassroots level, where they've come at it from an educated technical level. But we've got a number of meetings between now and June to try and go back to the Minister and the DIA with something which is more appropriate than was originally proposed, which is quite exciting, and hopefully it's going to be very rewarding at the end. This is our one shot to do it right. Future for Local Government meeting on the 4th of Feb, site visit to Mangati Road with a few issues out there with Councillor Williams on the 8th. I had another meeting with Mayor's Task Force with Tuia and Te Pungi Kokiri on the 9th. Waikato Plan Youth Training and Employment Zoom meeting on the 10th. Jason Dawson, who's the CEO of Hamilton Waikato Tourism, his farewell. And then a Waikato Plan Leadership meeting yesterday morning. So that is what I've been up to, along with all the other bits and pieces over the last couple of months. I'd like to move that my report be received. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Christensen. All in favour? Any matters arising or any points or questions of interest to those? Yes, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the annual meeting of the airport company, I think we, in discussion that we had previously prior to you going to that, there was one or two comments raised, if I recall correctly, about the new directors coming onto the board with no experience in running airports. Was that matter raised?
That on those particular points, no, it wasn't raised, but certainly their experience and their skills that they bring to the table was mentioned, and they obviously gave a brief overview of their own resume. Another question I remember you asking, Councillor, was why there was no dividend payout in the last financial year. And I did raise that point, and that was around just, I suppose, the uncertainness about where we're heading with COVID, and they felt just under the circumstances it was best to withhold any dividend payments until we get through this pandemic period. But no, I have no questions about the skills of those that are on the directorship. Okay, thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 228, repurposing of seal extension funding. And Andreas, I assume, is somewhere.
Yes, can everybody hear me, Your Worship?
Yeah, we can hear you. We certainly can't see you. I don't know if there's that expectation.
Okay, sorry, I'll switch my machine on here, start the video.
Awesome. Thank you, Andreas. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity, Your Worship, and good day, councillors. I would take that the report is read. I think that it's garnered enough interest that people will probably have read it in depth. I just hope that it was read in conjunction with the report and the minutes that were done on 22 January 2019, because part of this report refers back to that report that the previous CEO did. In brief, council through the LTP process, as well as in a council workshop, decided to continue with the seal extension program. At the time, it was said that approximately 200,000 kilometers will buy council in the region of 1 kilometer of sealed road. The identified road was Huirima Road, and we did our initial investigation and a brief design of through the district plan of what is required, and we came up with figures that are not consistent with what was identified to council. In fact, it was approximately 3 times the cost, and we are concerned that should we proceed with this, there will be some risk to council in terms of overruns or not being able to provide the community with the with what was promised. So we went out and are providing council with a few options, which I'm sure that council will have or are going to consider today. So if there are any questions regarding this, then I would be gladly, where I can, provide answers. Just in brief, the section of Huirima Road is the southern end where it meets up with Waipapa Road. There's a GIS screenshot which shows that in terms of what is on the GIS, and we will have to confirm this through a land survey, the road is not in the position that it's supposed to be. Now, this could be because of stretching of the GIS. We have not confirmed that yet, but we have in the past been in a position where the roads are not in the correct road reserve. Now, that came about because of the roads originally being tracks, and that was the easiest route to take. And then the roads became a little bit more formal, and they were graded and they were metalled and they were developed more and more. But the road itself, the position, hasn't necessarily been adjusted to the actual road reserve where it's supposed to be. And that could be through physical. I mean, there could be a large drop-off or a steep cliff that's in the way. And but we have got a program which is unfortunately very small to realign the road reserve boundaries with the actual road, or where we can actually cheaply enough, we can actually realign the road. And that program is underway, and it's the road legalization program. So in terms of what we're proposing is council make a decision on whether we either proceed with this, and there are several options: either provide more funding to do 1 kilometer, or provide or reduce the scope of it to be able to do only what $200,000 will allow, $216,000 physical works will allow, which is the amount that is currently in the LTP. Or we actually repurpose this money for something else if council decides not to go ahead with seal extensions. We could use that money to, for instance, to fund the shortfall that came about due to the Wakakotahi additional funding assistance that we received from them, which amounts to approximately 115,000 local share that we have to provide, which we have to, if we're wanting to unlock the additional money that Wakakotahi gave us, we have to ask council for anyway. And also to adjust the program itself. So I'll put it to the floor. If anybody wants to make comment, and I'm sure that there will be plenty. I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can.
Awesome. Thank you, Andreas. Look, first off, thank you for a very comprehensive report. Certainly you put a lot of work into getting to where we are. I certainly note, and you're probably fully aware, that it's met with an element of frustration, both in the initial proposals on the LTP to do seal extensions, and then also the added frustration of the cost, which is absolutely ballooned out far greater than we expected. I have received a letter today which is inappropriate for me to table that at today's meeting because it's not following the correct procedural protocol, but it's probably just expressing again the concerns and frustrations of a particular resident on Ōtorohanga Road, which we probably at some point need to go back and talk to as well. Just wondering if, you know, amongst all the different opportunities we have in terms of repurposing funding, if that was the direction we chose to go down, what are the opportunities out of the Wharepuhanga ward to refocus that funding on the ward as opposed to looking at coming back to footpath extensions and the likes in Ōtorohanga? You've got any ideas there, Andreas?
Because of the time scale since we found out about the cost blowouts, and the and this period now, I haven't given it a lot of thought. The ideas that are proposed as options for council are just that. They, just to get the council thinking about what could be done with the funding. But there are safety improvements that we could make, where we can actually try and obtain additional Wakakatai funding if we succeed with that. There are other roads that are that may require some realignment in that area. We're going to also do an Arohina school, some safety improvements around that with the impending school zone speed limits that are upcoming, and that type of funding can be used to improve the school area. Intersections we could use. We can install some more lighting, which we've started with, which Councillor Kloss has initiated, and we carried on with until the funding ran out. So there are some areas where we can definitely use it in that particular environment. By putting that money towards the MOR funding, which is the maintenance and operations and rehabs, I know that area has got a lot of vegetation problems that we haven't been able to attend yet because of the funding constraints. So we could actually make the roads safer by cutting down more trees that are in areas which we could improve. So all of that actually can be used from that money.
Thank you, Andreas. I'll open up the floor now if there's any questions of you, and I'll probably come back with another resolution at some point.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Kloss.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was blown away by Andreas's report, and so I actually have a counter for it. And I've written it just to keep it concise and to keep myself in check. Rural residents count. Rural residents count, and not just for the rates they pay. Don't take it for granted. You are on unacceptable ground when wanting to pull designated projects from Ōtorohanga Ward, which is not overwhelmed with council largesse. The previous agreed road ceiling extensions must stay in place and not removed to boost funding shortages in town. Wait until the new town housing valuations come into play and you'll see more rating funds coming into town. Ōtorohanga district has a significant gravel roads compared to the rest of the district. Farmers will tolerate a gravel road if they have to, but most would prefer to be able to travel on a sealed road. It is misguided to quantify the value of the road to the number of the vehicles using it. Translate the value of the goods being carried on the roads and you get quite a different value to the nation. Never forget, this is a farming district that feeds the nation. I have spoken with a number of residents living on Mangere Road, and they are alarmed at the danger of cyclists using Mangere Road and Hariwimu Road. The cyclists have a number of stories of near misses. It was not discussed with the group of residents about moving the cycleway permanently to Mangere and Hariwimu roads, again a move to circumvent a cycleway lack of funds for a new route when cyclists could not cope with the route on the other side of the lake. I recommend that appropriate council staff meet with the locals concerned. Don't wait until you have blood on your hands. I have spoken with a long-term resident on Mangawhai Road, again a gravel road in poor condition in the Ōtorohanga ward. However, this resident did not want it sealed, as this road goes through their farm and it's used as a stock race. Ranganui Road was initially recommended as the first road to seal by the previous CEO on the basis that Ranganui Station on Ranganui Road is the largest ratepayer in the Ōtorohanga district. Again, this was not discussed with locals, but I did. They did not see a need for further sealing before other roads, as they are able to use McLean Road through to Waipapa Road and beyond, and most of their traffic goes on to Tokoroa, Mangakino and Taupo. I have often expressed my displeasure with the inequities of how rates are used compared with rural ratepayers' contributions. Our leaders and senior staff want to gloss over that and have a range of rationales for that happening that doesn't stack up. Farmers take the good with the bad, knowing there are good years and bad years. It's a long-term job. Town values are rising compared to rural land. Salaries and wages earned in town are gaining on rural income. The comparatives are shifting. Rural people are self-sufficient generally. They do not need or utilise many of the sports and supports that council provides to town folk. And because of the location of the town on the southern boundary of the district, there is a range of options for shopping, etc. The town can rectify that if they have more to offer. I have a definite no to removing the road extensions previously agreed to, regardless of the excuses.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts? Sorry, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, just a question for Andreas. I understand the bottom end of Huririmu Road is already tar sealed. Just where does that go to in relation to where the the chicken farm is going in? Is it tar sealed right the way to that gateway, or have we still got a gap of metal before the chicken farm?
No, from the intersection, Councillor, with where the school, Arena School is down past the chicken farm is already sealed. So the chicken farm part is sealed where the intersection is.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Claus.
The reason that area was sealed was at the time that the dairy farms were extending in that area, and Fonterra put pressure on to have that sealed.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Dow.
Yeah, Andreas, just a couple of little questions. In your little form, you've written down vegetation, and for the sealed part of the road, you've got over 13,500 for the vegetation. But in unsealed, you've only got just over 2,000. I don't understand why it costs more to spray weeds on a bit of tar sealed road than it does on a metal road.
Councillor, are you referring to maintenance costs?
Yeah, you put a maintenance, because I've talked to people about, because I know you say in your report that an unsealed road is cheaper to maintain than a sealed road. Well, the roading people I talk to say a sealed road is cheaper to maintain. And then I see in your, the way it's been categorised in your graph, the vegetation is a lot dearer on a sealed piece of road than it is an unsealed. I don't understand. I thought a weed wouldn't know whether it was metal or tar sealed to grow beside the road, to be honest. So I don't quite understand your figures there. You take the vegetation out, the sealed looks a lot better than unsealed, as a cost.
Councillor, the costs are directly coming out of our database called RAM. So those are the costs that are assigned to that. So if something gets done on a sealed road or an unsealed road, it gets allocated to that, and the costs are actually accumulated for that section of road. So I didn't make those up. They are actually in our RAM database. For that is what we actually pay. So normally you would expect that unsealed roads and sealed roads have got a similar vegetation cost, but for some reason it may be that that section of road was more heavily populated with trees along the road, and they needed to be cut down, and that's why the costs were escalated in that for that particular section of road. We spent during the COVID in 2020 through just after the lockdown, we spent $250,000 to cut down trees, and most of those were along unsealed pieces of road where the trees, wilding trees and so on, have grown. So, you know, it depends on specifically vegetation and where the majority areas are where the vegetation grows prolifically. And also, just as a matter of interest, the unsealed roads are usually low volume roads. Low volume roads receive a lesser funding allocation because of the low volumes. So it's that goes according to the ONRC, which is the One Network Roading Classification. So you wouldn't have a road which is highly trafficked and the risk is higher full of vegetation. So the lower class roads will receive less of a naturally a lesser amount of vegetation control and so on.
Yeah, but the examples you've put is Hurry-Remy Road, as I understand. So you must get a bill from the weed sprayer or the hedge trimmer while he's separating those two pieces of road, or otherwise it's just a coating. Like, it's not, whether the road's sealed or unsealed, the vegetation control is irrelevant, I would have thought, to the surface of the road. Is that correct?
Yeah, again, it depends on what was done at the time. I haven't got that right in front of me. I can get that for you if you wish, but it could be that there were a whole lot of trees that needed to be removed for argument's sake, and that was where the cost was, because vegetation includes mowing, it includes spraying, cutting off trees, all of that type of stuff comes into it.
Councillor Dale, I'm sure through that, and I'm unfamiliar with the actual parts of the road, but it could be through that sealed parts through trees or heavy vegetation, and the unsealed part is through open farmland, because they're two different parts of the road, from 0.0 to 2.3 kilometres, then the 2.3 to the 8.2. So,
but my point is, sorry, I'm a bit lost, but my point is, if you take the vegetation out of this graph and then you divide your figures by the thing, a sealed road is cheaper to maintain than an unsealed road. But in the report it says that an unsealed road is. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Sorry if I'm sounding a bit wrong. I just feel in the 70s the council was doing 20 kilometres of unsealed road, sealing it every year. Then in the 90s it's 7 kilometres, and now we're in 2022 and we're going to do nothing. I think it's a backward step. Yeah. Sorry.
Through you, Worship, I'm no roading expert, but I imagine on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis, a sealed road is quite simple to maintain. But then there comes a point where you've got to scrape the whole thing up. And so I don't know, Andreas and Mark, I need you to help out here, but around that rationale, vegetation aside, and I'm not sure about the differences here, but grading once a year or every 2 years or every 5 years for an unsealed road, but completely stripping off a sealed road to redo it. I don't know, maybe that's however long they need doing. I'm not sure.
Do you see the mark, or Andreas just want to elaborate on that, please?
Well, it is a fact that unsealed roads are cheaper to maintain than a sealed road. I don't know who gave you that information, but if you look through NZTA, Wakakotahi literature, if you even go back to what the previous CEO wrote, it is a fact that sealed roads are more expensive to maintain. Sealed roads have got higher speed. They normally carry more traffic. So you would have a situation where after a period of time that the sealed road would have more expensive rehabilitation and corrective action. I'll take, for argument's sake, off the top of my head, Mangaronga Road was 7 kilometers long. And we had obviously potholes, we had cracks in the road, we had all sorts of edge breaks that we needed to fix. So when the time came that the road, and it also underwent reseals, which are not cheap. When the time came to actually fix the road pavement because of the volume of traffic on it, that road cost us, I think, roughly $3 million to rehabilitate to its current state. And it's not that different to what it was before. All we did was to actually take the pavement layer, the base course layer, renewed it and sealed it again. There were some improvements, which accounted for some of the money. We did provide some resilience and made it a little bit wider. But overall, the road itself is pretty much the same as what it was before. It's just a little bit newer, but that cost us around about $3 million from what I can recall. And that was done 2018, 2019, just to rehabilitate it. We didn't build a new road. We didn't seal an unsealed road where we have to do a lot of layer works and so on to actually get it up to a standard. So in terms of an unsealed road, it is less to maintain it. It's less prone to develop major issues than a sealed road.
Thank you. I think we probably should stick to the road in question here. Any further comments, Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, I'd just like to support Councillor Kloss and Rodney. Councillor Dow, sorry. Do we have to relook at the cost? Do we have to relook at what it is? As I say, I've been on council here the first term, and I don't know a bit of the history of this district, and we're proud of our roads and that, and I don't want to see it slip away. I want to see us keep up there. So if we've got to find some more money, that's maybe what we've got to do. But, you know, there's always more than one way to skin a cat, so we have to revisit it. One of the points that's made and about the alignment of the road, and you made it clear that we weren't sure on it. What sort of cost would it be to get a surveyor to confirm that? Is that an open question that you answer?
I would hazard a guess. We're looking at around about $5,000 to do a proper land survey on that. I don't have those figures off the top of my head. Judging from what we charged, what we paid previously, I would reckon that for that stretch of the kilometre or possibly even maybe a bit longer, would be around about $5,000 to survey that and put new marks in, because I don't think those original marks are still there. Depending on where they are, I'm not sure. It could be that the road is actually in the right place, and like I said, but to test that, we have to go out and find the marks, and it's all, you know, time related, and surveyors are not cheap either.
Yeah, I understand that. So, and I don't want to get away from this road, but this road is it's important that we do know whether that is or is not. From my point of view, it's important that we know that the road is actually on reserved land. If it's not on reserved land, then it becomes a bigger issue again. Yep. And I'd like to know how many other roads in the district may be similar under the similar cloud.
I would assume,
good luck with that.
But especially this road, if we're talking about this road and spending money on it, and a lot of us still want to spend money on it, I think, you know, we need to understand that first.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, Andreas, I firstly want to say I can see that you put a lot of time into your report, and just want to acknowledge that it's a big report and an equally big email that you sent back to Kit yesterday. So I just want to acknowledge your time in that. But just something that I want to make clear. I mean, it was only last year we did this LTP, you know, for some direction in the district, and here we are only 1 year into it and deciding that, you know, we want to, you know, contemplating changing it. And I think that we should be sticking to our LTP. it's that fresh that we should, stick to our convictions, and whether it is a pathetic amount of sealed road, well, so be it. It's what we can afford. We're cutting the cloth for what we can afford. But just one other point is that in your report you mentioned that it was only 300 metres with basically a dedicated cycle track to one side. I mean, is that wise? Why can't we just tar seal a longer length without the cycle track? I mean, the rest of Mangere Road down the bottom doesn't have a cycle track beside it. I don't think it's necessary to have that there. It's very low volume of cyclists. As soon as they get up onto the Waipapa Road, they're at the mercy of any fast-moving traffic. So for 300 metres, I just think that's totally impractical.
No, you're absolutely correct, Councillor. That's why I gave both the costs of a road with a cycle track adjacent to it, or the cost without the cycle track, just to give you an indication of the cost differences. If council so to choose to proceed without the cycle track, and this is also what the trial managers have indicated, they prefer it without the cycle track, a dedicated one. Although if you look at the road safety part of it, it would be better to separate cyclists and foot traffic from the road going traffic. So that is why I included both. We didn't just think about, yeah, let's slap a bit of tar seal onto a unsealed road. We actually had a deep thought about this and what is the best option, and that is why we came up with both.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Tanya?
Yeah, thank you through your worship. So just in response to Councillor Johnson, so yes, the LTP is still pretty fresh in our minds, and we are boxing on and implementing it. But we've sort of always said that, particularly in this time with construction prices changing so much, that there could be projects that we need to bring back to council because we maybe didn't estimate them correctly, didn't have time. We were very focused on getting 3 water projects in our long-term plan accurately, so probably put a lot of time into that. I mean, as recently as last week, I had one of our major contractors ring me and just say that they will struggle to deliver our one of our maintenance programs on with the budget and the contract that we've got in place. So, we know it's volatile out there and things are changing quite rapidly. So, yeah, trying to keep things on track, but bringing things back to you should there be any changes.
Thank you, Tanya. Councillor Jeffries?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I think I made my views known, I think, through various email communications. But since then, I've had a useful conversation with Andreas. But before I comment on that, I'd just like to say that I support Councillor Kloss and her comments this morning. And also, I'd like to say, Rodney, Councillor Dow, that you're quite right, that this council was, I think, nationally known for its seal extension program for many, many years, and it just seems to have been lost for some reason, I guess mainly driven by finance. But could I just make these additional comments, if I may? So my argument for the retention of funding for the future seal extensions is pretty much based around, in my view, that there doesn't seem to be a lot of thought given to the funding of future seal extensions. And for example, there may be some rural subdivisions or other developments such as the business recently established up at Honokiwi that would benefit from sealed road access. I think Councillor Johnson talked about the chicken farm. Who knows, that's possibly another example of that. I think we should continue to provide for future seal extensions, and we could do that by establishing a separate reserve for such a purpose, and annual contributions could accumulate in that reserve until it's needed. So, for example, over 5 years on current rates, we'd have probably around $1 million worth of local share that we could put into a seal extension program once a suitable one has been identified and approved. If council decides to discontinue with funding of their future seal extensions, then I believe it's appropriate that we then reconsider how our roading program is funded. And by that I mean, should properties on unsealed roads be paying the same rate in the dollar for roading as properties that enjoy the benefits of a sealed road access? There is an element of cross-subsidisation there, and whether you consider that fair or equitable is up for discussion. There is therefore no impediment that I'm aware of that prevents council from introducing a separate roading rate for properties serviced on rural roads, particularly unsealed roads. Council is required to maintain robust records of roading expenditures, so it should not be a problem to identify annual expenditure on unsealed roads and share that cost with properties on those roads. Coincidentally, I think a lot of those properties are in the Kāwhitiharoa ward, and I'm talking in particular about Okapata, Kaimango, Mangati and Raglan Road. Now, Raglan Road's an interesting one on its own, and we've described that road in the past as the West Coast Adventure Trail or something similar. If any of you have driven on that road recently, particularly on the Waikato district side, it's certainly an adventure. The roading on that side of the road itself in the Waikato district is disgraceful, and I've raised that actually personally with Waikato during their long-term plan submissions, but I didn't get very far with that. One other consideration from a Kāwhiti perspective is what happens...
Councillor, can I just stop you there? Can we just please stick to our topic here, which is about Hirarimu Road and the sealing extension there? I absolutely get your points, but we could be talking till 6 o'clock tonight if we start getting off subject on everything we're talking about. My apologies for that, but really if we need to stay on the Ōtorohanga ward, what's going on with the potential seal extensions with Hirarimu Road or other expenditure out there. So, yeah, sorry to stop you there, but I absolutely get your points.
Yeah, no, apologies. I thought the discussion actually was a wider one than that, Your Worship. I thought we were talking about the continuation or discontinuation of seal extensions.
No, not specifically. Tanya, you wanted to say something there?
Through you, Worship. I guess my only response to Councillor Jeffrey's comments about rates for people who have sealed roads or unsealed roads is that, like it or not, rates are a property tax, not a fee for service. So I know that that's uncomfortable and we end up with disparities all over the place, but no one so far has come up with a fairer system. So, and any changes that we want to make along those lines are funding policy, revenue and financing policy, that kind of thing, and would need to be through a long-term plan process and consulted on. So it's a big piece of work. There is just, if I can continue, there is a recommendation in here around revoking the decisions around or resolutions around seal extensions and that. So, you know, I guess for this long-term plan process, the 2021 to 24, so whether we want to keep that in there or just focus purely on Hirarimu Road in this case is a matter for councillors.
So, yeah, sorry, Councillor, you're absolutely correct. I mean, it does go further than that in terms of the staff recommendations. I'm just afraid if we get off subject on Hirarimu Road, then we just get into a far broader discussion. So my apologies, it is there. So you're correct in what you're saying, but I'd really like to discuss what we're doing out at Ōtorohanga. Yeah. So look, there's no question. I mean, it all came as a shock to us when we saw the escalation in price. When you look at something, you're expecting a price, you get a quote that is 3 times as much. It is natural that you're going to reconsider the viability of the proposal put forth. What I would like to put forth as a resolution, if possible. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sorry, Councillor Williams first.
Thank you, Your Worship. But it probably ties in with what you're about to say anyway. Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned that the 236K, we're going to double the cost and only get a third of the length. We need to make a more pragmatic use of of the funds. And I think your suggestion earlier of leaving it in the district and perhaps using some of it to get a more, actually much more information on the road itself and how it's placed and those additional costs that might come up over and above the 500 to 600K that we're talking about. And just as a quick note, when that cost came out, my road is sealed. It's only 800 metres long. All of the rates from all of the residents wouldn't cover that sealing now.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I think,
Sorry,
yeah,
before
go for
you
it before
move something. I've brought Brendan and Graham online because I think we're kind of starting to talk money. And if we're starting to talk money, then we need to figure out where it's coming from. And here are the people that are going to help us with that. So I'm happy for, obviously you to proceed, but I just wanted to draw your attention to why they have come on the stream.
Thank you, Tanya. Brendan or Graham, do you have something further to add in terms of the financial implications of the cost escalation of seal extension? Oh, no, of course not. Yeah, okay. I'll go back to what I was going to propose as a resolution. The resolution being that, I've got to get my wording right here, that the money that was proposed for the seal extensions, no, that's not right either. Excuse me, I was talking to Tanya. It's about how we go forth with.
I've got 3 ideas around
you.
Resolutions, just
That's why
listening
she's
to the
here.
commentary today. So one of them could be that staff bring back options for repurposing the existing budget of $236,000 in the Wharepuhanga ward on suitable road improvement projects. Okay, so that's one. Another one could be that 1 kilometre of Huirimu Road is sealed as planned with no shared cycle path, or you could include that if you want, with the 3 years budget and the long-term plan brought forward, making a total of $708,000 available for this project. And we could change that to fit the amount that is in here, but I'm just worried that contingencies are just, we need probably a bigger buffer. The final one is option around a recommendation resolution is that 1 kilometre of Huirimu Road is sealed and that the additional budget of $334,000 be allocated and funded from Graham and Brendan. So we could either put, if you're of a mind to do the seal extension on Huirimu Road, 1 kilometre, no shared path, $570,000, then you could either bring forward the total amount that's in the long-term plan, meaning that we forego maybe some other projects that were in years 2 and 3, or we find some extra funding from somewhere to do it. So that's
Tanya, just going on that proposal number 1, you've put an actual dollar figure next to it. Maybe the discussion is a bit broader than that. It's in terms of, and even if it's 200 or 600,000 proposals, and this is in discussion, I don't want a full-blown consultation out at Wharepuhanga, but in discussions with Councillor Kloss and a couple of residents there may be, they may agree that there's a better repurposing of the finance, and it may be around safety around the school. It could be a couple of points on particular roads. It could be safety of cyclists. But I think the repurposing of the money, and it could be a different figure to the 236,000, but I think to have the discussion with the locals, and they may, because I'm sure as practical people that they are, if they saw a budget blowout to 3 times what it was, they would understand that there could be a better reinvestment of that money. So, well, this question you put to Graham and Brendan?
Yeah, just I guess without Brendan and I kind of going into the detail, just like we've obviously set our rates for the year, so we can't go back and reset our rates. So it kind of leaves us with some options. We could, we're looking at like effectively a 3-year roading program. We could effectively smooth some of these projects over the 3 years. We would need to look at like what surpluses, if any, are in the roading budget, that we could effectively use. We could also look at potentially debt funding some of that seal extension, which we've done in the past. So to spread the cost. But I mean, it's we can't just go back and collect additional rates. So we would have to look at sort of one of those other options. But yeah, it's whether you had anything to add, Brenda? I mean, I'm probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts, either debt or surplus funding. I mean, I suppose it depends on a timing-wise thing. Council makes a decision today on something. I don't know when the contract's likely to happen. Is it something that would happen before the end of the year, or is it something that, because of timing, is it going to be next year? Of Andreas, in which case that changes, possibly rate fund some of it as well.
Okay, I've just got a question from Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, just my question is, like, we've got an option 3 there, which rings bells with me. Like what we're saying, and that Councillor Williams and that sort of said the same line, is we've got a lot more research in that to do, and we're guessing stuff and we're proposing stuff. I think it's the feeling of the council that, well, it's a feeling of mine anyway, that we carry on with this project as per se, but with the regard to the cost and the finance. Now, we don't know the cost until we know whether the road's in the right place and what the real cost is. We don't know what it's going to cost until we get a contract to actually cost it for us. We can say, oh, this amount of road costs this. It might be a subject where some contractor wants to do that road for 700,000. I don't know. But we haven't got any of that information yet. But my feeling is option 3 is we want to carry on in this track to keep this roading budget alive and do it. We have to do some more research. We haven't got all the information that I need yet.
I think it goes back to my point, Councillor, about the research or the discussion with Councillor Kloss and a couple of those key stakeholders out there to see where the investment is. Councillor Kloss.
Huriwimi Road has been on my agenda for 9 years. And yes, there are some outspoken people who live on that road and who are deeply affected by it. But the issue has been increased by the cycleway now using that road and the access to the camping ground that was put there by DOC. And all this is because other people have been changing their mind because they run out of funds to do what they really want to do. And so now we have got the cycleway problem on Huriwimi Road, which already has enough issues in relation to the school bus run and how scary that is for the school bus driver. It is a critical road. Okay, it doesn't have 1,000 cars a year or whatever, but it is an important road for the district. And we could talk about it and consult again. I don't see the point in going over it again and again, and then because it becomes too hard that we want out.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so going back to, sorry, Tanya.
For you, Your Worship, I'm just trying to figure out the line between governance and management here, and picking up Councillor Ferguson's comments. And my advice to you would be, if you want to proceed with this, you basically give us the budget and let us get on with it. And if there's something that turns up that throws a huge spanner in the works, like the road is so misaligned that we're going to have to spend $500,000 realigning it, then we come back to you. Otherwise, yeah, we just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. We kind of know the triggers, I guess, and the risk of, that we would want to bring back to council. So yeah, I just wonder if you don't kind of set us a budget and say, go for it, if that's the direction you're heading in.
Graham, can you just go back in terms of how that budget would work if it was going over a few years? I mean, we thought we'd set a budget of 238,000. We've come back with 600,000+. So, yeah.
Should we ask Mark and Andreas how likely it would be that this project would be done in this financial year, or would it be put in next financial year?
Good first question.
If I can answer that one through you, the worship, your worship, sorry.
I think realistically, the actual build won't take place till next year, but we would start all that design work this year. So we would end up spending a portion of that 236,000 with a view of building next year. I think, and just to answer Councillor Ferguson's questions, I think any sort of road build or realignment is always going to have some sort of legalisation part to it, which I don't think would be a huge significant cost to the build anyway. I think that's something we could come back to you with, but I think from a staffing point of view, it would be better for us to just have the direction to go ahead. And as Tanya said, if there was anything catastrophic, we would report back, but it would just be a business as usual build. And bearing in mind, we don't actually know the true alignment. Given that the locals will end up with a sealed road, the moving of those boundaries, I don't think would be a big challenge anyway for us. So that, yeah, and I think by combining those three years of budget, it basically turns a 3-year program into a 1-year program. So if that helps answer that question.
Thank you. I'm just going through the recommendations here. So we've got the first one, the report presented the roading manager be received. We take out the part B, and then the last one, the approval is given.
No, we don't.
No.
We need a reworked C.
Yeah, that is totally reworked from there.
I think, just through you, Your Worship, we need a decision on whether we just stick with the 236,000 that's in the budget for the 3 years and smooth it across. It sounds like we don't need it all, and this year we can carry forward that amount to next year. Brendan and Graham are nodding. Then if we need to pull some forward from that 3rd year, we can. Brendan and Graham
Still
are nodding. So we use the whole 3 years rather than, is that correct, Brendan and Graham? Is that what we would do?
Yeah, I think you know, like in the current environment, I mean, like we've prepared a 3-year long-term plan. So I guess the emphasis here is that we're not changing our rating levels over those 3 years. You know, we've budgeted for these items in previous years. So if you kind of think of it like a kind of and carryovers in reverse, you know. So I mean, we're just managing effectively a 3-year budget, you know. So I mean, it's and you would just do that by deficits or surpluses in the within the rating account.
Yeah.
Thanks, Graham. Am I correct then? Oh, sorry, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. Just to be sure, then we're approving that 3 years for this project, and effectively the seal extension program is extended by, like, the next road on the list. If it then takes the next 3 years,
Will be 3 years before the next one is
we're
done if we're
extending
using
it
the
a good
existing
few
budget.
years. Yeah.
And that's just reflective of the cost increases that we've seen. Is that the general appetite around the table to follow that guide? Seems to be. Okay, so we have, in terms of, thank you guys, in terms of the staff recommendation, the report presented by the roading manager be received firstly, and then the part B will be that 1 kilometre of Hiraremu Road, and in brackets no shared cycle path, is sealed, okay, and planned, as planned, with the 3 years budget brought forward, making a total of 708,000 available for this project. Okay, so that's the resolution. I'd like to move that. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Kloss. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, guys. Andreas, thank you for the report. Mark, thanks for the help. Graham, thank you also for the help, and Brendan also. Right, moving on to our next item, which is item 229, the financial report for the month ending 31st December 2021. Brendan.
Yes, right. I'm back. I just had to go and move some things around. Okay, so on to my report. I'll take it as read. Let me just find it in my agenda. Apologies. There it is. I guess just to, because normally we do the report for the previous month. Because of the requirements that we have with our loan trustee for our loan funding through the LGFA, which we don't have any at the moment, but the trustee still has requirements. We're required to do 6 monthly reporting to the end of December. So I've done to the end of December as opposed to end of January, because January there wasn't that much spending, because obviously a lot of staff were on leave, Christmas break, all that sort of stuff. So that's why it's a sort of a hybrid of end of December for the financials and then end of January for the capital side of things. So just moving down. So just going through some of the key points on our comprehensive revenue and expenses. So total revenues sitting at 9.7 against a budget of 12.2. The big difference there is being subsidies and grants, mostly in NZTA funding. Again, we haven't, most of the work happens sort of January, February, March there. So obviously that's where the big amount of the subsidy will come in, but the budget hasn't been spread on that basis. It's sort of been spread evenly over the 12 months. Expenditure wise, most things below budget, and a lot of that's probably due to the lockdowns since August, and a result of that. The employee benefit expenses obviously down. We've had a few people leave, a few vacancies that have taken a bit of time. You were introduced to a lot of those replacements this morning. So yeah, I guess that will probably even itself out by the end of the year, but we'll still have obviously a saving for those months when those roles weren't filled. Onto the financial position on the next page. So we're in a healthy financial position, about $1.7 million in the bank at the end of December, $324 million worth of, or $325 million worth of non-current assets, including our investments, 2.3 million owing in current liabilities, about 751,000 in non-current. A question was raised with me yesterday about the provisions of the employment benefit liabilities, how there's current and non-current portions. So that just relates to the different types of liabilities. For example, non-current employee benefit liabilities include stuff like sick leave, where there's a potential that we may have to spend more on sick leave over later years and not in the current year. Whereas the current year stuff is things like annual leave and payroll accruals and that sort of stuff. And then on to page 15, the combined cost of service statement. So this just gives you a sort of a different view of how we're looking by groups of activities. So obviously operating expenditure at 13.2 compared to a budget of 14.7. Big differences there. Governance and leadership, again, a lot of that's due to the vacancies that we've had, because most of the staff costs go through governance and leadership. Capital wise, you can see we're well under in our renewals and our growth in our level expenditure. So again, a lot of that is due to the roading stuff that'll happen in January, February, March. Again, that budget was spread evenly over 12 months as opposed to on a actual when the project was going to happen basis. So I guess before we get into the capital project update, which Mark has written most of, are there any questions about the financial side of things?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Brendan, what's the minimum acceptable operating balance in our bank account? You're saying you've got 1.7 million sitting in your bank account. Do we really need all of that there? Do we, I mean, I know interest rates are very low, but do we actually move funds around to try and sort of maximise?
Yeah, so that's cash and cash equivalents. So we have a couple of bank accounts, a core one, which gets us a little bit of interest, and then obviously the main account that we use for day to day. So the main one we try and keep 300,000 to 400,000 in, because we do a payment run every Thursday as well as payroll every 2 weeks. We want to keep a bit in there. We don't have much in the way of direct debits going out, so there's not much being drawn out of it. It's all coming in. And then the rest is usually put into the call account. Earns a tiny little bit of interest. There's probably not enough for us to look at locking anything into term deposits at this point. Yeah, so we have about that. We also have a $200,000 overdraft available on that account if we need it, but we hardly have to use it. Haven't used it for a while. It's only if we accidentally forget to transfer some money across and something comes out that we'd forgotten about. So yeah, that hardly gets used. But yeah, so we aim for about 300,000 to 400,000 in that bank account at all times. And obviously at the moment with the rates out, we're starting to get money in, so we're doing a lot of transfers into our call account.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. If there's no other questions,
No other questions at the moment, Brendan.
we'll get Mark to present his capital update then.
Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Brendan. Through you, Your Worship. I think Brendan sort of alluded to the fact that we probably haven't had a lot of time change between the last time this report was presented and now and Christmas in the middle of that. So we probably haven't seen a lot of movement in the money spent in those bar graphs there. But I think the key to this report is probably down in the descriptions of where our projects are in current state of play. So I think we'll start with the roading. We've basically awarded the last tender with the road marking, but given the last report, we've actually got another project we'll probably start in the next short while. So that the roading is pretty well in hand. The 3 water stimulus projects are coming along really well, with 6 of the 8 completed now, and the 2 that aren't completed are very close to starting. Although the Kohorakau one is probably the only project that is still sort of in the early stages of tendering, whereas we have awarded a contract for the Tiaroa Rising Main. So that's probably a little further forward. When we move down into the actual main 3 water LTP projects, we've had a lot of movement in the last 2 months with getting some contracts finalised. Excuse me. And we are starting into probably quite a busy next few months with actually starting to deliver the physical works. One thing that we are seeing come through a bit more now is some long lead-in times, which is a little concerning. And we're seeing numbers like anything between 12 and 16 weeks for some products. So there will be some probably, no, I won't say delays, but there's going to be the opportunity, I think, for us to make sure we purchase some materials up front to make sure that these materials get on site early for when the contractors arrive, so that we can deliver these projects. What I haven't detailed in there is that we've already started working on a lot of the sort of design and early work for next year's projects, which is probably going to help us deliver them a bit earlier next year, rather than spending the first 6 months of our financial year getting a lot of those designs and tenders out. So I think just one project in there that probably doesn't show up in the bar graph is that flood protection work is all completed now, which we just haven't paid that contract yet, which hasn't shown. So open to any questions on any of the sort of finer detail there. Otherwise, it's sort of tracking along really nicely.
Thank you, mate. Excuse me. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Mark, yeah, a good result, and congratulations to you and the guys for what you've done so far. I just wondered, we've got a Kawhi Community Board meeting coming up shortly, and will there be a report going to the board on the Kawhi water supply situation, you know, over that Christmas New Year period, and the need to go to level 4 restrictions? I guess the question, Mark, there is do we need to look at installing another reservoir, or is the real issue a reduction in the flows from the bore in the spring? I appreciate it's probably a combination of lots of things, including consumption. But I think there are questions that would be useful to get some guidance on, and maybe some direction on as well. And just the other issue too was, I know it's probably not material, but just what was the cost of trucking in the water over that period? I realised that there was a few truckloads come in.
Yeah, I mean, first, question, yeah, I will be bringing a report to the community board on the Christmas water issue. And in answer to your second question, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, Councillor, but I think it was between $4,000 to $5,000 to bring that water in, which seems a lot of money, I think, and it is a lot of money. I won't dismiss that, but we were faced with the decision of either we do or we don't, and I think we would have spent a considerable amount of more money if we'd had to try and return that network back to operation if we'd run out. So it's a judgment call that's made at the time, and I think the correct call was made. And if the town had run out of water, I think we would have seen considerable more cost than the cost of that cartage over the hill. Bearing in mind the water came from Ōtorohanga, so there's no cost for the water per se, but there is obviously a cost to produce it.
Thanks, Mark. Any further questions, Councillor Ploss? Put your mic on, please.
Totally. Slowly. Just in relation to the capital water scheme projects at Darahina, I've been made aware that 4 of the farmers are not happy about Taupaki being closed down. Has there been a discussion with them? Are they being kept in the loop?
There was it was an LTP project that was presented, and we have discussed through scheme committee meetings that we're faced with having to upgrade 3 water treatment plants, and there's an opportunity for us to remove one of those plants and combine it with Huaremu, which means we only have to upgrade 2 plants. Unfortunately, there's a cost to doing that combining, but to my recollection, that's been conveyed all the way through that was a proposal, was to combine 2 of the 3 plants. I'm not sure which people you're talking about, but I'm more than comfortable to go and talk to them directly, answer any concerns.
Their argument is that the Taupaki, although it's small and it only has a small number of people on it, it has delivered water for 40 years and there's never abundance volumes of water there, but it always delivers and it's always good. It's good water. Yeah,
and I think the question is not whether it delivers the water. I think the question is whether the water that it is delivering is compliant with the drinking water standards, and that is the difficulty we have. I suppose to come back to my first point is it's probably cheaper for us to upgrade 2 plants than 3 plants, and we can still supply the water to Taupaki from the Huaremu plant. So all we're effectively doing is removing that cost of infrastructure upgrade and making 2 plants compliant instead of the 3rd. So there, as far as delivering water to those people, that won't change. The water will just be going a different direction to be treated and then coming back.
Are you having a water scheme meeting recent in the near future?
Yep. So we normally have our annual meetings coming into the end of March. So we'll be starting to put those agendas together shortly.
I think they just need to understand that it's the sort of the reasons why you're doing it, but it's not for the benefit actually of the Taupaki scheme, is it? It's rationalising your situation.
Yeah, to answer that question, Councillor, it's all about being compliant with the drinking water standards, as Mark made reference to. And just to put it in perspective, a drinking water provider is now someone who provides 2 houses. So if we go back to the Three Waters reform, when they thought there was somewhere around 5,000 suppliers in the country, there's something like 75,000 rural water schemes. And keeping in mind that what's happening here on Mark, what he's referring to in terms of the drinking water standards with the regulator Te Mata Arawai, is it's got nothing to do with Three Waters reform. It's just making schemes which should have been compliant for many years, bringing them up to speed. And there's inherent costs there, like there's been enough work done across our district. And I suppose for myself, Te Hira as a prime example, you've got to get your point source treatment at a suitable place so you can even have point of use treatment further down the track. A whole lot of complexities there and a whole lot of costs that go with it. So yeah, I think the water scheme meetings you have, Mark, will be an ideal time to really bring them up to speed. And I have the intention of calling all the chairs this week to explain what's going on with the Three Waters reforms as well.
Well, okay, but that water never killed me, so 40 years.
Hasn't killed me either. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, Councillor Dow.
Mark, I see that Tiramaku Dam investigation is completed. Do we know the results? Like, is it a good enough backup source for the town's water supply, or was it not? I wasn't quite sure what the outcome was.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure if those results have been conveyed back, but the simple answer is it is feasible to build a dam up there. So that's what the report provided, but it was at quite an extreme cost. So I'll dig that report up and I can easily share that through to elected members. Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought that may have been sort of tabled at a workshop or something. So my apologies.
Thanks, Mark. It'll be good to see.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any further questions, councillors? If not, we have the staff recommendation. It's recommended the financial report, including the capital projects update for the month ending 31st December 2021, be received. Do I have a move on a second of that? Move Councillor Jeffrey, second Councillor Ferguson. All in favour? Right, carried. Thank you. Right, moving on to the Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Report. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. This report covers the last quarter of 2021. So I'll ask the report be taken as read and open the floor to any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Morning, Andrew. Yeah, I don't know if you've had a chance to read the email that I sent through to you at this stage. So I won't go through all of those. But there were a couple of things in there that I wondered whether you're able to respond to. And they relate to, in the report, item 20 under the heading reduction activities. And I just wondered whether it talks there about the cluster focusing on support for the rural industry and what happens if COVID is present on a farm and so on. Was there any agreement reached on the nature and level of that support? And if so, how is it to be delivered and what information has been shared with the farming community itself? Are you able to respond to that?
No, I haven't been involved in any of those discussions, so I'm sorry I can't enlarge on that point, but I will make some further inquiries with Dave and see what the substance was. I know there's a lot of concern about movements of large numbers of stock, if that should ever happen due to water shortage or in the event of, say, an ash fall, for example, covering pasture. So it's just, yeah, that's one of the main things, or disease and lockdowns and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. So what you're saying is there's information still to come out to the farming community, is that right?
I think it's just an ongoing discussion about whether farmers have made any sort of arrangements or even considered the impact of those sort of events on their operations. But like I say, I'm not really aware of what the actual detail of that discussion was, so I'll have to do some more background inquiries on it.
Okay, thank you. The only other one I had was item 32 of the report. And I'm giving CAFIA a bit of a plug here. I'm just saying that in the report, there's no mention anywhere of the voluntary work that's still being undertaken in CAFIA and at Marais around the harbour. And I guess the question is, why is that? For example, the CAFIA Moana Marae Collective Hub information, which has been commented on by Waikato DHB and by Dr. Burton, is noticeable by its absence. Kathy Holland, who's the chair of Waipapa Marae, is the coordinator of that and is doing a terrific job out there. There's also a small steering group looking how it can support COVID-related persons directly referred to it by Dr. Burton. I just make the point that the Kāwhia Moana Marae Collective Hub concentrates its efforts only on maraes around the harbour and with those registered at those respective maraes. So it's leaving a gap that the steering committee is considering, as not all of Dr. Burton's patients are registered with the maraes and or in fact live in the township itself. So I guess anything Kāwhia doesn't seem to get any recognition or consideration in the report, which is disappointing given the great work that's been carried out there. And I'm just suggesting that perhaps some close liaison with Dr. Burton and the likes of Kathy Holland may help to overcome that. So,
thank you. I'll just pass over to Tanya to respond to that, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think for the purpose of this report, you make really good points, Kit, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers all over the place delivering things, doing things that we don't even know about. To mention them all and try and capture them all in this report, I think would be a little unfair to staff. So really, I think the mention of Waitomo, Ōtorohanga and Waipa is kind of the district. So we haven't said Marakopa, we haven't said Cambridge, we haven't like broken it down into tiny little places. It's all encompassing and a more generic statement around what's kind of going on across those regions. I think, yes, the Kāwhia Community Board, if they want to acknowledge the local volunteers and do something in some way, that's totally appropriate. But yeah, I think for the purposes of this report, it was just more an all-encompassing statement rather than singling anyone out. But I do appreciate there's lots of people doing really good work out there.
yeah, no, that's fair comment, and I accept that. I was just putting the plug in for Kāwhia.
Thank you. Got to stay parochial. Absolutely. Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you, Andrew. On that note, then, we've got the Civil Defence Emergency Management Quarterly Report, and the recommendation is the council receives this report. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Move Councillor Ferguson, seconded Councillor Johnson. All in favour? Right, carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next report, which is item 231, the Building Control Activity Report, October to December 2021. Phil.
Yep, I'll just vacate my chair, Your Worship, and let Phil take over my monitor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry, my technology has let me down, so I'm borrowing.
You right, Nick?
Yes,
Should be. Yep. Yep. It's working. It's happened.
all right. Can everybody hear me? Sorry.
We're a bit quiet, Phil, but we can hear you.
Speak up.
Sorry. Yes, I'll take the report as read. So has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask?
I'll start with the question, Phil. In terms of Waikato Prison, has there been a change in the expected finishing date out there in light of the fact that they're really having issue procuring goods?
I'm sorry, I'm just having difficulty with the sound. I'll just
What more volume?
bit more volume here.
Phil, just
Phil's-
come in.
Just come in here, Phil.
Okay.
Not a problem.
The question again, Your Worship, please.
Sorry, Phil, all good. I'm just wondering whether Waikeria Prison, the finish of that has been delayed at all as a consequence of the procurement issues.
Yeah, certainly there've been a number of delays out there caused by supply, material supply and all sorts of other things. And of course, COVID's had an effect on them. They've actually split their site up into 4 sectors so that they can reduce their risk. So they've got a very small workforce there at the moment rather than a larger one. So they're certainly taking things seriously in terms of the COVID risk to them. It's a couple of cases out there could close the site. So yeah, they're probably well behind, to be fair.
Thank you. Secondly, congratulations on the reaccreditation for the team and also the training which everybody's going through. It's awesome, and I think we can all quite clearly remember a couple of years ago. And it's just really, for me, it's quite rewarding and humbling that you guys are doing so well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's much appreciated by the team. And yeah, it's always difficult for smaller BCAs. We don't have the resources available that the larger BCAs have, and it is a bit of a trudge to get through it. It's not easy, but we came out of it quite well, I thought, at the end of the day.
Now, so with that, Phil, with the 2-year till you're reaccredited again, because initially there was just a 1-year gap, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we were in a position where we were being audited every year on the basis that we'd had a few failures with some things on our first one, and we're back to a 2-yearly audit now, which means they consider us to be very low risk.
That's fantastic news. Any questions of Phil, councillors? Yeah, Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, just a comment on the Carpia Hotel. For people who may not have been out Carpia Way recently, it's looking absolutely magnificent, and I think probably they're doing a great job. I think they're finishing the fit out at the moment, and in conversation with Tom Moki, who's running the project, I gather that they're looking at an opening sometime in March, April, to which there'll be invitations extended to attend. So no, it's been a great thing for the town. And just one quick question: am I able to ask what's the latest thing with Happy Valley up the road? Is there the delays up there?
They've gone back to a situation where they put out a call for more funds. They're trying to raise more funds to start the project. So I guess it's just their funding model that they're dealing with at the moment, as I understand it. But there's no intention that I've heard that they're not going to go ahead. Certainly have a big investment there.
Thanks for that, Phil. Any further questions, councillors? If not, we have the staff recommendation for the building control activity report for the last quarter of 2021 be received. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Dow. All in favour? Carried. Look, thanks, Phil. Another good report, and let's look forward to an incredibly busy 2022, which I'm sure you'll have.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 232, the District Library report. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Your Worship and councillors.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty busy last 3 months, as you probably see from my report, and a lot of that has been around lockdowns. I should check, can you hear me okay with my mask on?
Please, it'll be easier to hear you without the mask.
I'll
Yes.
just take it off. I just realised I sounded quite muffled to me. Yeah, so we've had quite a busy 3 months with the lockdowns and the restrictions that we've had in place around COVID, and you can see that that's had quite an impact on the use of the library. But there's been some real positives as well. We were able to launch a click and courier service in late September, I think it was. And sorry, I've just got windows popping up in front of me that don't need to pop up in front of me. And that meant we were able to actually supply library books to local families during the level 3 lockdown, and it was really well utilised. And you can see that we had 1,800 odd items, nearly 1,900 items actually went out during that period, both to Ōtorohanga and Kawhia. When we reopened in bubbles of 2, so that's why we've opened with reduced opening hours, and that's to allow us to make sure we can still get all the back of house work done that gets the new books out and keeps all the library services ticking over. And to date, that's worked really well. We had our holiday program, our summer reading program, that was designed collaboratively between ourselves, Waitomo, and then later in the piece, Ruapehu Libraries, who joined us. And we actually finished that just the end of January. And it went really, really well. So we designed it in such a way that if we had to shut down again, the program could go on completely unaffected. And then we were really lucky. We actually got some great sponsorship from the Kiwi Leisure Park, and the rest of our prizes were all local businesses because we called it Backyard Bingo. So we thought we should have the prizes that were in our own backyard as well. We've just been giving those out this last week, and we were able to have six packs instead of just a couple that we'd initially planned for. And the kids were just over the moon at what they were receiving. And I think there's a few happy families out there looking forward to a visit to the Kiwi House, the caves, the pools, and the leisure park. We took our story time online, and I reported that last time, and I just wanted to let you know how that had gone. And you can see that our visits to the Facebook page are up 45.3% against the same time last year. And I think that's a real testament to the work Molly's done to get the story time up online. That said, we are working on protocols of how we're going to be able to, run our library programs in-house in the traffic light system, obviously once this Omicron wave is over and under control. So throughout all that, we've kept prepping for the RFID and doing our inventory, and the RFID project started about 2 weeks ago, and to date we're about 14% of the way through, so that'll just keep going. And the mobile shelving was put on hold due to lockdown because they couldn't deliver it to us. So I'm just waiting for a date of when that's going to be received, and that'll be another big project to get underway. You'll see with our forward planning, a lot of that is actually set on hold a little bit during the lockdown, because a lot of it actually relies on us being able to actually be in-house to sort things. And that's slowly getting back underway, the planning for it all. And you'll see by our statistics that we have been really quite heavily affected by the shutdowns, with just about every measure down except Facebook. Yeah, so that's kind of it really for the library.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Heather. I mean, you couldn't have much more of a challenging year than what we've had. So I think you've done incredibly well during that. In terms of that identification, so I was reading the RFID, radio frequency identification. Can you just elaborate on that, please?
I sure can. So what it is each book, I've actually got a prop here. Here's one I prepared a little earlier. I don't know whether you're better see or not, but each book gets a radio frequency tag in it, which then has to be programmed to that book. And what it means is when we're doing things like issuing at the moment, we have to scan every book. But when the RFID project is all completed, we'll scan the person's card, put the pile of books they're taking out onto the pad, which looks a bit like a it's a bit like an large element of a stove that's perspex, and it literally just issues the books, and it's the same at the returns point. And then further down the track, when we're doing things like inventory, we'll actually have a piece of kit that you actually just run along the shelves, and it literally reads all of those tags, so you can inventory. Well, we could probably inventory this library in 4 hours as opposed to, several months. And the same with finding missing books. You can go hunting for missing books, and it can take you weeks and weeks and weeks to find them, depending on how out of order they actually are. But with the RFID, you can program in the little wandy thing and just walk along the shelves until it goes beep and lets you know it's there. So it's really about the more manual handling stuff becoming a lot more efficient.
Heather, it sounds like you're doing yourself out of a job.
Not with all the programs we're looking at to introduce.
True. Any questions of Heather, councillors? Councillor Jeffries.
Just one, thank you, Your Worship. Heather, I just wondered whether you perhaps just check your statistics there for your Wi-Fi sessions. They seem to be very similar to one another between Ōtorohanga and Kawhia.
They actually are correct. The Wi-Fi use out at Kawhia is quite astounding. It's equal and sometimes more than Ōtorohanga.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the comparatives, 7093 and 7093. That was all. But that's good. If
I will double check that one. Sorry,
yeah.
I was looking at this year.
Well, it's great to see that even though the materials that have been issued out there have halved, the Wi-Fi sessions are pretty much constant, aren't they? So it's certainly been used. That's for sure. Yep.
That certainly is. I actually just recently spent about 40 minutes on a phone with a customer who was having some technical issues getting on out there, but we managed to get them sorted.
Good. Okay. No, congratulations. Good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any further questions of Heather, councillors? Okay, if not, we have the recommendation of the library manager's quarterly report be received. I have a mover and a second of that. Please move Councillor Christensen, second to Councillor Jeffries. All in favour? Right. Thank you, Heather. Have a great day.
You too.
Right, we're moving on to councillor update. I'll start to my right, Councillor Williams. We need your mic on, councillor.
Someone might. Just that I'm meeting with catching up with the trifecta work with CDM, and obviously meeting on site with yourself and residents on Ngāti Road, and very timely that we also met with, or saw that Lou was there and on it as we spoke virtually. But yeah, just missed the collegial contact that COVID has presented us with. So looking forward to the new year, and great to meet all the new staff that were here this month. It's really exciting to see what we're going to be looking for or getting in the future.
Thank you, councillor. I totally agree. Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Worship. Not a lot to report. Attended the Kawhia Community Board meeting on the 17th of December. It seems a long time ago now. And last week I attended a meeting of the steering committee called Te Taio o Kawhia Moana, who are looking at the erosion of the inner harbour, but also access to Ocean Beach past the Makatu Marae. So there was a strategic thinking meeting. There was about 22 or 24 in attendance at that, and some good stuff came out of it, which I'll circulate to you as soon as I've got that information back. So there is the meeting still to be held between Oto and Regional Council, and the issue of jurisdictions over who does what and so on still to be sorted, but that meeting is still to be held. But other than that, no, it's been all good. And other than the water shortage at Kawhia over Christmas, New Year, Kawhia is looking splendid as always. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Kloss.
Well, I've been on the road actually. Now I have to get on the car and go and have a look at what is happening in Ōtorohanga. And so I think I just went down just about every road, not quite, but almost. And so I'm up with the play with how the condition of the roads are, and the grass cutting, and also I made an effort to contact people, so I actually do know what people are thinking, and so that has been helpful. And I've had other people coming in and bringing me information that I didn't previously get when I was living amongst them. So that's all good, but I'm looking hard for a replacement. So it's quite a hard sell, actually.
Surely not.
Yes, it definitely is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ferguson.
No, I haven't got anything to report really. The country's looking good with this rain, and yeah, people are smiling.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen.
I've got nothing to report, just really excited with all the staff updates, and yeah, bring it on.
It's very exciting. Yeah, Councillor Dow.
I haven't got too much either. The only thing I've got to report is I've had concerns about residents ringing me up about the no safety barrier on the State Highway 3 bridge, which I've been bringing up to the regional council committee, but I'll keep bringing it up. But they've seen little kids riding their push bikes on the bridge there, and they get a bit wobbly, and vehicles go quite fast on that bridge. So I don't know what we can do there, but yeah, we'll just keep banging away at them, and see if NZTR are into safety, as they say now. But yeah, otherwise, not too much.
Thanks, Councillor. At those regional transport meetings, it sounds like with a table banging and screaming and yelling, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, look forward to it. Councillor Johnson, anything happening in your life?
Not too much to report, except just with BT Home, we've been for the first time ever, we're struggling with staff, and we've had just had the news that our manager of 11 years is going to resign in a couple of months, and that's a bit of a challenge for us. So we're going through a recruitment process for that, and one of our RNs, registered nurses, has resigned due to the COVID mandate, and so we're struggling to find a registered nurse as well. So we're looking forward to the border opening when we can have a greater pool of people to replace those staff. In the meantime, we're struggling with staff. Yeah, so it's virtually unheard of for us. We usually have a waiting list of people who want to work there. So we've got some challenges, but we're working through it. But anyway, just to let you know. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Councillor, and good luck with the recruitment process. Thank you, councillors. Item 233 is a motion to exclude the public to go into a confidential agenda item. So I'd like to move that we go into public excluded. Second for Councillor Jeffries. All in favour? Thank you. So Brendan, you've got that, I'm sure. In terms of the public excluded. Yeah.
Just wait